Was everyone able to complete the exercises? No? Okay, so let's start from the beginning, because I'm pretty sure you have a lot of questions. So with Bluebooking, like, you don't have to memorize every single rule. There are tons of rules. Like, this entire booklet is full of rules. So it's really good to bring post-its. The more familiar you become with it, as you start to use it, you include tabs to know which pages that you most often use and that you would actually need. So use the post-its as often as possible, just to be able to make it easier for when you're using it, even in practice. You can just automatically flip to the tables and pages that you would need to use. So let's start off with number 1 under the skills exercises. So the assignment says, using your Bluebook, please generate the proper case sites for the following scenarios and assume that the site is at the end of your sentence and requires abbreviations listed in tables T.6 and T.10. So keep your fingers on T.6, table 6 and table 10. And we're gonna go through question 1. George Lucas has sued Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Jabba the Hutt, who in turn sued Darth Vader. The actions were consolidated into one case. The decision by the United States Supreme Court was issued on December 9, 2006, on page 42 of the United States Reports, volume 50. So we gave you a few hints. And does anyone want to work this one out on the board for us? We know who the parties are, we know that it's consolidated, we know it was a decision by the U.S. Supreme Court, the date of the decision the date it was issued, and the page number. We also know the volume and the reporter. Anyone?
I'll try.
Yes.
But I don't think it's right. Do you want me to say it or do you want me to write it?
No, you can write it. Actually, have the camera turned that way so we can see what you're working on.
30 minutes.
It's a citation packet.
It isn't an email.
I don't know if that's right.
Do you want to explain what you did and why you put it in that order?
Did I do it right? Alright, well, this was the case with the 2 people, and I didn't think you were supposed to put anybody else, just.
Why not?
You were just supposed to take the first person's last name, I thought, right? Okay, yeah. And then this is the volume number. This, I'm pretty sure, is the one for the abbreviation for Supreme Court, United States Supreme Court. It's the page number, and then that's the year decided. Should I sit down?
Anyone agree, disagree?
Is there a comma between?
There's a comma between Sky. I put one between Skywalker and 50, but there might be a
Anyone else? It was good.
Just not great.
Only thing you're missing is a period at the end.
Oh.
Yeah, at the end of your citations, especially if you have it as, like, at the end of a sentence or wherever, you always have a period. Unless it's the middle of a sentence, like say you're in
Yeah.
Lucas v. Skywalker and you include the citations in there,
Okay.
and you continue on with your sentence.
Okay.
So one trick that I would recommend doing, and most likely you won't have to read through like a mini paragraph to figure out the citation. This is just for your own practice. But you always want to make note of the parties involved. So you want to know who the plaintiffs are, who the defendants are, and then, and please note, this is all underlined. But I just did it individually so you could list the plaintiff versus the defendants. And then you can put in the comma. You don't underline your comma, which is good. You put the volume number, the reporter, page number, and then the year in parentheses. And that's just for case sites, and you make sure you put a grade at the end. So I did this for when you have a lot of parties involved in a case. It makes it much easier for you to take the time to figure out who all the plaintiffs are and who all the defendants are if you have more than two parties involved. So say you have a parent who's filing a case, a complaint, but they're representing their minor child. So normally you would expect that it would be the child's name as the plaintiff, but because it's a parent, there are other rules, procedural rules that you would use. So it helps to know who the plaintiffs are, who the defendants are. Say you have more than one defendant. You have a car accident, the driver, the driver's insurance company, and anyone else that was involved in the car accident that you want to list. Then you're able to figure out whose name would go at the end of in the case name. But you do want to know who all your parties are. And that goes even for briefing cases. It makes it much easier for you to do that as well. So let's go into the second one.
So in a car accident one, it's just the people, you wouldn't list the insurance, it's not the insurance though, right? I guess that doesn't really pertain to what we're doing right now, it's kind of just off topic, but.
Yeah, well, oh, trick question. You can't, I've seen it list the insurance company as the primary because, you know, that's where the deeper pockets
Yeah.
are. But it also depends on how the case proceeds, and that's something you'll learn in Civ Pro. So if you end up only suing the driver and then the driver wants to bring in their insurance company, or you do it the other way where you sue the driver's insurance company and they find that the insured person should be sued because the insurance company doesn't cover, you know, certain things or whatever, then you'll see if you have like to interplead or implead. You'll learn that in Civ Pro.
Okay.
So question number 2, an action brought by a parent, Jason Burda, on behalf of his daughter, Juliet Potter, against his school district, Detroit Unified School District. The case appeared in the 449th volume of the Northwestern Reporter, the second edition, at page 59, and was decided by the Michigan Court of Appeals in 1974. So we gave you some hints on what tables to use, as well as the page numbers, depending on which edition. Anyone want to do this one? Okay.
Okay, so I have really bad handwriting, so
Better than mine.
I couldn't find an abbreviation for unified. I tried everything.
Okay.
But,
abbreviations, if it's not listed in the blue book, you just write out the name.
Seven.
Do you want to explain all you read out?
I guess so. So, since the child was a minor, you go by the parent's name, because he's suing for,
On behalf of
his
child.
daughter, yeah.
Mhm.
And then, I abbreviated school, district. 449 was the volume, Northwestern was reporter. The second edition,
Mhm.
the page number, and then the abbreviation for the Michigan, I don't know,
Court of Appeals.
yeah, Court of Appeals and the year.
Okay. Anyone agree, disagree? Did anyone have anything different? Okay.
We're gonna point it out for her.
That's good.
That's the right one for the Michigan Court of Appeals too, is that the,
It is.
okay. I think it looks good.
Okay, so remember the procedural rules that I mentioned? Let's see. We have procedural rules on page.
Or was I supposed to put a comma after 59 and then just only abbreviate the year?
No, you were good with that. The procedural rules that I'm talking about are Rule 10.2, if everyone could turn to that. And we are looking at,
What page is 10.2 on?
sorry,
Okay.
116 for the 20th edition.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm not sure, but I put the daughter's name first.
Mhm. so we can figure it out together. Okay, so you have the daughter's name first, and, Yoli, you had Burda's name first, or the father's name. So with table 10.2, we're reading, it's like halfway in the middle, below steal seizures. When using only one party's name in a short form citation, so we all agree we want to use one party's name, right, for the plaintiff. Avoid using the name of a geographical or governmental unit, a governmental official, or another common litigant. That's not the one I wanted to use. Sorry. Oh, perfect, page 11, this explains it better. So with case names, it's table B, it's not table, B 10.1.1. And it's gonna be subsection 4. So some case names may include a procedural phrase, abbreviate in the matter of, quote, petition of, and similar procedural phrases to in re, abbreviate on the relation of, and if you have something that says on behalf of, and similar procedural phrases to ex rel. So when adversary parties are named, omit all procedural phrases except ex rel. So in this case, we have, the question calls for an action brought by a parent, Jason Burda, on behalf of his daughter. So in that situation, we have two plaintiffs. One is representing and suing on behalf of. And so you would change on behalf of to be ex rel. So it would look like, Burda ex rel period Potter. That's the last name of his daughter. Versus, and then you have your defendant. Your defendant is good. You have the abbreviation for school and district, which is good. So we'll continue with that. And we want to make sure we underline right before we put a comma. We don't underline the comma. So now let's include the information on what pages and what reporter we will find it in. 449, we all agree? So now with the reporters, everyone is good with Northwest 2nd edition. Anyone had anything different? One thing you want to pay attention to? Period. And it's all together. There's no space when you have the reporters. So Bluebook, I mean, you don't need to remember like off the top of your head. You'll see how it's written in Bluebook. And so we'll have the reporter listed as N.W. period 2D. When you're typing, make sure your D is lowercase and not capital D. And then 59 is the page. There's no period after the reporter in the edition. And then we go into Michigan Court of Appeals, the year, which is all parentheses, and we end off with a period. Okay? So when you have someone suing on behalf of, in the matter of, a lot of, you'll see that often in probate and family court cases. In you have to use the procedural rules, it'll tell you exactly how to write it out. So just be a little bit cautious with that. And you should be good. So let's move on to the third one. A case brought by Johnson & Johnson Company LLC against Pacific Line Railroad Limited and reported in volume 62 of the Atlantic Reporter, 3rd edition, on page 987. The opinion was issued on March 19, 2006 by the Rhode Island Supreme Court. Anyone want to work this one out on the board? No volunteers?
Not for this one.
Not this.
So we're gonna work it out together. Who are the parties in this? Let's go through the parties.
Johnson & Johnson and Pacific Line Railroad Limited.
Johnson and
Company.
Johnson. Do you wanna write out the entire business name?
No, just one CO period.
Okay. The defendant?
Pacific Line Railroad Limited.
Limited is spelled out?
I spelled it out, I mean, I could be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, LTD, right, or,
LTD.
no.
Is there a period after LTD?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if it's spelled out, the and? No, it's the and signal. Okay. Anything can be abbreviated just from the names? You can use here's a table for abbreviations.
Railroad is R.
I'm sorry?
Railroad is abbreviated.
So we can change this to R.
And Pacific is also abbreviated, PAC.
Is there a period at the end of Pacific?
Yes.
Okay, PAC. Line is spelled out?
Yes.
Okay. R, and then we have LTD period. Okay. What about the LLC that was in Johnson & Johnson Company? Do we need it? Okay, so you say yes to it. Anyone disagree? Why do you say yes?
I say yes because isn't it the full and proper way of writing it out so that you're aware? Isn't an LLC kind of important to know, well, not to all? Is it for real wrong? Like, I feel like it is.
Okay, so now let's go into the reporting, the reporter in the volume. What is it? What's the volume?
62.
Reporter?
Atlantic Reporter, 3rd edition.
So are we abbreviating or
Yeah.
are we writing out Atlantic Reporter? Abbreviating it to what?
AOL. No? Oh, you're right.
It's, Atlantic Reporter is abbreviated to A.3D.
Where did you find that?
Page 290.
Okay, and the D is lowercase, right?
I'm sorry?
The D is lowercase?
Yeah.
Okay, A.3D, is there a period at the end?
No.
No, okay. So 62, A.3D. .3D. And then what's the, page? 987. Do we need to include anything in parentheses?
The state and the year,
Okay. What's the state?
Rhode Island, so it's R not I. And then the year 2006.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or wanna change anything?
I don't, I might be wrong, but I don't think that's supposed to be the Rhode Island in 2006. Am I wrong?
Okay, so what do you want in here?
I feel like it doesn't need. Oh, never mind.
You have a table with abbreviations for the
Yeah.
states as well.
Yeah.
What's,
No,
So-
no, I know that's obviously the abbreviation for Rhode
Okay.
Island.
so you don't think we should have Rhode Island?
It is, no, I think we should, never mind.
Are you sure?
No.
I totally feel you.
Maybe just not an abbreviation, not, in parentheses for Rhode Island, or.
Okay.
Or in parentheses.
So you're saying,
I don't know what I'm saying. Why don't we just-
put it down, parentheses, 2006. Are you gonna put a period at the end here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Same here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then RI, I still think the RI should be there, I just didn't, never mind, it was.
Wait, where did you want, no, we're gonna go ahead. Where did you want the RI?
It's just, I actually think that I think that the RI, I thought at first the RI should be outside of the parentheses, but I
Okay.
now think that it should be inside of the parentheses.
I think that's the way, like, I like it that way. I don't think the RI should be there. It says like, for the Supreme Court, that it doesn't have the RI.
But it
You already
uses,
said the A through D.
but it uses the US for the Supreme Court.
Use the word.
So you wanna take a look at
Yeah.
everything that you're doing with Bluebooking, you definitely wanna take a look at how many parties do you have? How do you condense it? How would you cite the party's name? You wanna look at the reporters, the volume, the page numbers, but you also wanna take a look at, in the jurisdiction that I'm using, that this case is from, how do they cite if it's coming from this specific reporter? So with this specific reporter, A.3D, what was it called? We know that the opinion was issued by the Rhode Island Supreme Court, and this is being cited from the Atlantic Reporter 3rd edition. So you look at that, you take a look in Bluebook on page
290?
105 to 106 talks about the courts and jurisdiction and how you would cite it. So you know that this is a Rhode Island Supreme Court decision. It's not the U.S. Supreme Court, so the way they cite it will be different. But specifically, since it's state courts, you look at B, which starts at the bottom of 105 and continues on to 106. And it tells you how to cite even with the state courts. So they tell you to omit the jurisdiction and the court abbreviation if unambiguously conveyed by the reporter title. The reporter title is A.3D. Is it ambiguous? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Can you tell what state it's from just by looking at the reporter? No, okay. So then you wanna include the state in the parentheses.
So like the top, so like.
Right, so you would have Rhode Island, or whatever state say you do Mass, it would be here, because this is ambiguous. If someone's looking for it and they just see the citation, they have no idea what state issued, what state court issued this decision, yeah.
Sorry, just, okay, so if you're looking just purely in the Rhode Island section of
Mhm.
the but then it says like colon, site to A to D, site to A, whatever.
Give me 1 second, let me get to Rhode
Okay,
Island.
sorry, page 290.
Okay.
Because what you're saying makes complete sense to me.
Right.
But like then if I was just purely trying to go off of this, Bluebook, it doesn't mention that the RI should be something.
Right, well, this part of the table doesn't tell you anything about where, like including, what's included in the parentheses.
Yeah.
It just talks about, how you would cite the different reporters for that state.
Yeah.
So now you have page 106,
Yeah.
which is rule 10.4. Alright? Yes, 10.4, which talks about court and jurisdiction. So you have to look at different sections of the Blue Book just to make sure that your citation is correct. They all cover different areas of the rule. So 10.4, page 106, the rule is so if you omit the jurisdiction and the court abbreviation in the parentheses, you would omit this if it's unambiguously conveyed by the reporter title. So if this had, say, New York State, 2nd edition, you can already tell by the NYS 2D that it's from New York. It wouldn't be from any other state. And so you wouldn't have to include New York in the parentheses here. But because this is the Atlantic Reporter, which covers more than one state, it's ambiguous as to what state court issued the decision, so you have to include it here. But there are instances where you won't have to include the state, and it's all based on whether or not the reporter is ambiguous or not. Once you look at it, you should be able to tell what state court it came from. Okay? You're gonna have to use your Blue Book. You can't memorize these rules. Like, there's no way.
I feel like it made so much more sense yesterday before we did this. Like reading the cases, I was like, oh yeah, I totally feel like I know what I'm doing.
I mean, it's easy to read, but writing out the citations takes time. So, remember, the goal is you write out your citations to make it easier for the reader to then find it.
Yeah.
Just like it's easy for you to catch up and figure out what court issued what decision, and if you got a citation and you wanted to follow up into Westlaw, you can easily insert it or even figure out what jurisdiction it came from, what court issued the decision. You want to make it that much easy for your reader as well. So carry your Blue Books. You can't memorize it. You have to use the Blue Book. So let's put it together. And our final citation would be Johnson & Johnson. Company. We don't need the LLC.
Oh,
No, you don't. It's a short site. You're conducting the space. You don't necessarily need the LLC. One, Johnson & Johnson Company, you already know, popular company, so you don't really necessarily need to include LLC.
Well, for smaller private or small business companies, do we need to include
You
it, or is
still wouldn't.
oh, really?
I can't think of a case where I've ever included it in there.
Alright, I just know from now on not to include the LLC.
Use your Blue Book. Don't take my word for it. I'll ask Professor Burda about that, just to clarify why it's dropped automatically, or if it is automatic. But for this one, we know that Johnson & Johnson Company is a plaintiff versus, so we're okay with this citation, this shortening? EAC dot line R.R LTD. You do keep your limiteds, I will tell you this. You keep your limiteds, you keep your company,
Okay.
you keep corp. I just cannot ever remember writing LLC.
So you get rid of like APC also, right? Like LLC, APC.
I what's the full?
My law firm was ABC. I don't know what it all is.
You like.
It might be in the Bluebook, under the abbreviations list, so you can always check with that. So continuing on, we have this underline. The period is underlined, comma isn't. And then 62, A.3D, 987, R.I, back to 2006. Sorry for my chicken scratch. And that's about right. Okay, so we're going into okay, so the skills exercise.
Can I ask you something real quick?
Yes.
Is there a space between A period and 3D, or is that like
No.
A period 3D?
It's A period 3D.
Alright, cool.
With your reporters, there's no spacing in between the letters and
Right.
periods, so, the last one, I think number 2, had, with the school district, it had Northwest Reporter Second Edition and .W.2D, no space in between. It's all one. Alright, so for the skills exercise, we'll do a few of those, and then we'll go into, research. So this should be pretty quick. Anyone wanna do number 1? So your initial citation for legal proposition is Coffee v. Love, 742 Northeast Reporter Second Edition, page 431. It starts from page 431, and we're pin citing to 433 Mass 2012. Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to say I found what page it was for the LLC and like where it says which ones
Okay, what page
you
is that?
omit. It was page 100
Okay, great.
under H.
Let's take a look at
It
that.
said business firm designation.
Okay. You said page 100?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so you omit Inc., Limited LLC, and AFSB and similar terms if the name also contains a word such as association, brothers, corporation, company, insurance, or railroad. So this one had company before LLC, which is why we dropped the LLC.
So we kept limited because we didn't have
Right, we didn't have
association or brotherhood.
that has railroad in it.
So we can get rid of it.
Yeah, I might have to get back to you on that. I think you do, based on this rule, but my answer to you as limited. But the rule does say you don't keep 2 business names. Railroad is a business name, so I think you can drop limited. I'll double check and I'll send you guys an email just to confirm with that answer. So it's number 3 to check. Okay. So going down to the skills exercise, we have the initial citation, we have the full cite, and you have to determine what your citation would be if the next sentence after the initial citation refers to Coffee v. Love on page 434.
I could do this one, I think.
Okay.
You want me to?
Yeah, if you could come up and write it, that would be great.
Oh, did you say confident? Oh. No, that's why I waited for the one that's only 2 letters. I'll still get it wrong because there's still room for error.
Here's a marker. underline id?
My bad.
Do you underline the period? Yes or no?
I didn't.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
You do underline the period. So one thing that you can easily remember without using Bluebook is that when you're writing the case names and you're using a comma, you don't underline the comma, but when you're writing ids and the short sites, you underline the period for it. So underline periods, don't underline commas. Okay? So we didn't get to go through all of this. Anyone have any questions on research? I mean, you can ask. I know you have class at 1, so you have like 10 minutes.
I don't even know where to begin.
Okay, email me and we'll schedule a time,
Okay.
alright?
So helpful.
I tried.
Thank you.
You're welcome.